controls a $95 billion shadow empire while preaching poverty, keeps torture victims' wedding rings as trophies in his prayer room, and uses a 300-year-old Holy Quran as his personal power source, while burning modern copies that question his authority. For 35 years, Ali Khamenei hasn't just ruled Iran, he's built the most sophisticated theocratic control system in human history, combining ancient spiritual artifacts with modern psychological warfare to maintain absolute power over 85 million people. Behind the humble clerical robes lies a collection that would make medieval kings jealous: stolen royal treasures, victims' personal belongings, and sacred relics perverted into tools of political control. Tonight, 15 possessions that expose how modern theocracy really works. Stay to the end. Possession number 1 involves direct communication with the dead, and intelligence agencies believe it's driving Iran toward nuclear apocalypse. Born into religious obscurity, rose through revolutionary violence, rules through spiritual terror. 1989. After Khomeiни's death, Khamenei seizes power and immediately begins weaponizing Iran's sacred heritage. But unlike other dictators who rule through fear alone, Khamenei discovered something more powerful: controlling what people believe is holy. For 3 decades, he systematically collected artifacts, relics, and trophies that allow him to claim divine authority while terrorizing anyone who challenges his interpretation of Islam. Every possession serves dual purposes: spiritual legitimacy and psychological warfare. The result? A theocracy that controls both heaven and earth, where questioning the Supreme Leader means questioning God himself. At number 15, intelligence defectors report that Khamenei keeps wedding rings confiscated from executed political prisoners in a velvet-lined case beside his prayer mat, each ring representing a marriage destroyed and a family shattered by his orders. The psychological warfare is calculated. While praying 5 times daily, he's surrounded by symbols of the love he's destroyed. Former prison guards describe how the rings were collected specifically for this purpose, not as evidence, but as trophies of his power over life, death, and human connection. Each ring tells a story of someone who died believing their love was eternal, only to have their symbol of devotion become a reminder of absolute power. The collection reportedly includes rings from executed poets, journalists, and democracy activists whose only crime was believing in freedom. At number 14, former intelligence officers describe rooms filled with diaries seized from children of political prisoners, personal journals used to monitor family loyalty and identify future threats before they mature into opposition. The diaries aren't just evidence. They're psychological profiles of Iran's next generation, allowing Khamenei's regime to identify and eliminate threats while they're still children. The collection includes drawings of family gatherings, prayers for imprisoned parents, and innocent questions about why Daddy disappeared. Intelligence sources report that these diaries are studied by behavioral analysts who create files on children as young as 6 years old. The regime uses innocent childhood expressions to determine which families require additional monitoring and which children need educational intervention. At number 13, during the 2022 women's protests, Khamenei allegedly ordered the collection of ashes from Qurans burned by demonstrators, not to mourn their destruction, but to preserve them as evidence of popular apostasy, justifying increased repression. The ashes are reportedly stored in crystal vials and displayed in his private study as proof that Iranians have abandoned Islam and require stronger theocratic control. This isn't religious devotion, it's calculated manipulation of sacred desecration to justify unlimited state violence. Intelligence sources suggest the ash collection serves a darker purpose. Each vial represents communities that have revealed their true nature and can now be subjected to collective punishment without religious criticism from conservative supporters. At number 12. Unlike other religious leaders who rely on traditional scholarly processes, Khamenei maintains a private printing facility for producing religious edicts on demand, allowing him to literally manufacture divine law whenever politically convenient. This isn't just a printing press, it's a divine law factory. When Khamenei needs religious justification for executions, economic policies, or military actions, he can produce authentic-looking fatwas within hours rather than engaging in traditional Islamic scholarship. The facility reportedly includes computers loaded with religious language databases, allowing rapid composition of fatwas that appear traditionally crafted but are actually generated using modern propaganda techniques. Each document is designed to make political decisions appear as divine mandates. At number 11, satellite imagery and defector reports describe a massive underground complex beneath Tehran that functions as an alternate capital, complete with mosques, government offices, luxury residences, and NBC-proof command centers. This isn't just a bunker, it's a shadow government that can operate independently for years. The complex allegedly includes underground farms, water purification systems, and communication arrays that would allow Khamenei to rule Iran even if the surface capital were completely destroyed. Intelligence analysts believe the facility was designed not just for war survival, but for governing during popular uprising. If revolution comes, Khamenei can literally disappear underground and continue ruling through his network of loyal clerics and security forces. At number 10, through the opaque Setad Foundation, Khamenei personally controls Iran's largest business empire, telecommunications, oil, banking, and real estate, worth more than most countries' entire economies. This isn't just wealth, it's economic control over an entire nation disguised as religious charity. Setad operates like a parallel government, collecting taxes, controlling industries, and funding operations that bypass Iran's official budget and parliamentary oversight. Intelligence sources trace Setad funds to Swiss bank accounts, Dubai real estate portfolios, and London luxury properties, creating a global money laundering network that makes financial sanctions nearly impossible to enforce. The empire was built through systematic confiscation of property from religious minorities, political dissidents, and exiled Iranians. At number 9, despite leading a revolution against monarchy, Khamenei allegedly maintains private access to Iran's royal crown jewels, including the 182-carat Sea of Light diamond and the Peacock throne, stored beneath his residence rather than in public museums. The hypocrisy is staggering. He publicly denounces royal excess while privately hoarding the monarchy's most spectacular treasures. Intelligence sources suggest he uses the jewels for private ceremonies, where he adorns himself with the very symbols of power he claims to have abolished. The collection reportedly includes jeweled daggers used in Qajar dynasty ceremonies, diamond-encrusted prayer beads, and golden Quran covers that belong to Iran's last Shah. Each piece represents the seamless transition from royal dictatorship to theocratic dictatorship. At number 8, former security officers describe a private chamber where Khamenei displays bloodied clothing from executed protesters arranged like religious relics, hijabs from women shot during demonstrations, student shirts torn during arrests, prayer shawls stained with martyrs' blood. This isn't just evidence collection, it's the creation of a trophy shrine celebrating successful oppression. Each blood-stained garment represents a life destroyed for demanding freedom, preserved as proof of his power to crush any challenge to theocratic rule. Intelligence sources report that Khamenei personally selects which items to preserve based on the symbolic value of each victim, prioritizing women who removed hijabs, students who demanded democracy, and religious minorities who sought equality. The shrine serves as his daily reminder that resistance equals death. At number 7, Khamenei possesses what he claims is a Quran written during Imam Ali's lifetime, using this 1,400-year-old manuscript not for scholarly study, but as a personal power source that validates his authority over all Shia Muslims worldwide. This isn't just a rare book, it's a weapon of spiritual warfare. By controlling access to one of Islam's most sacred texts, Khamenei can claim direct spiritual lineage to the Prophet Muhammad's chosen successor, making opposition to his rule equivalent to opposing divine will. The manuscript is reportedly used in private ceremonies where Khamenei places his hands on the ancient pages while making major political decisions, creating the illusion that his choices are guided by direct divine communication through historical artifacts. At number 6, former intelligence officers report that Khamenei maintains a secure communication system allegedly for receiving guidance from the Hidden Imam, the prophesied Shia Messiah, whose return will trigger the end times and establish global Islamic rule. This isn't religious devotion, it's psychological manipulation taken to cosmic levels. By claiming direct communication with the Hidden Imam, Khamenei can justify any action as part of divine apocalyptic planning, making his political decisions appear as religious destiny. Intelligence analysts believe this system is actually used for coordinating with proxy forces across the Middle East, but presenting it as divine communication allows Khamenei to claim supernatural authority over regional conflicts and nuclear program decisions. Viewer challenge, comment divine if you think this communication system is real, or manipulation if it's psychological warfare. We'll feature the top conspiracy theory in our next episode. At number 5, Khamenei is frequently photographed wearing a massive turquoise ring allegedly carved from a meteorite, a physical symbol of his belief that celestial forces have chosen him to rule until the end times arrive. This isn't just jewelry, it's a psychological anchor for messianic delusions. Intelligence sources suggest Khamenei believes the ring channels divine energy and protects him from assassination attempts, making him increasingly reckless in nuclear negotiations and regional conflicts. The ring reportedly changes color based on Khamenei's emotional state, leading him to make major political decisions based on its appearance. Close advisors describe him consulting the ring before approving executions, military operations, and diplomatic strategies. At number 4, former prison officials describe vast filing cabinets containing the personal identification documents of executed political prisoners, Driver's licenses, passports, and university diplomas kept as proof of the regime's power over individual identity and achievement. These aren't bureaucratic records. They're trophies of erased lives. Each document represents someone whose crime was thinking independently, speaking freely, or believing in democracy. The archive serves as a physical manifestation of the regime's power to eliminate not just lives, but entire identities. Intelligence sources report that Khamenei personally reviews these documents during periods of political unrest, using them to remind himself of his power over Iranian society and to plan future crackdowns on dissent. Emotional hook. Imagine your driver's license, your diploma, your passport, sitting in a dictator's trophy case because you believed in freedom. Would you want your identity to be part of someone's power collection? At number 3, intelligence sources describe a private study where Khamenei keeps nuclear research documents, uranium samples, and weapons blueprints arranged like religious artifacts, transforming weapons of mass destruction into objects of spiritual devotion. This isn't scientific research, it's nuclear mysticism. By treating weapons technology as sacred objects, Khamenei has convinced himself that developing nuclear weapons is a religious duty rather than a political choice, making diplomatic solutions nearly impossible. The shrine reportedly includes a uranium sample in a golden container placed beneath a Quran, symbolizing the fusion of divine authority and destructive power. Intelligence analysts believe this setup drives Khamenei's conviction that nuclear weapons are divinely mandated tools for establishing global Islamic rule. Warning: the next possession involves biological material from deceased leaders. This might be the most unsettling content we've ever covered. At number 2, former Revolutionary Guards report that Khamenei keeps preserved organs and tissue samples from Ayatollah Khomeiни's body in his private prayer room, using biological relics of his predecessor to claim continued spiritual authority over Iran's revolution. This goes beyond religious reverence. It's biological ancestor worship designed to make Khamenei appear as Khomeini's physical continuation rather than his political successor. By keeping parts of Khomeini's body, he can claim that the revolutionary spirit literally lives within his presence. The collection allegedly includes heart tissue, brain samples, and bone fragments preserved in temperature-controlled reliquaries. Intelligence sources suggest Khamenei consults these relics before making major decisions, believing they provide direct guidance from Iran's revolutionary founder. At number 1, intelligence defectors describe a detailed calendar system where Khamenei tracks prophetic signs leading to the Hidden Imam's return, using this apocalyptic timeline to justify nuclear weapons development and regional warfare as preparations for holy war against the West. This isn't religious scholarship, it's apocalyptic planning. By believing he can calculate the end times, Khamenei has convinced himself that current conflicts are divine destiny rather than political choices, making him increasingly willing to risk nuclear confrontation. The calendar reportedly includes specific milestones that must be achieved before the Mahdi's return: control over Jerusalem, destruction of Israel, and nuclear capability sufficient to defeat Western powers. Each fulfilled prophecy brings Iran closer to what Khamenei believes is divinely mandated global war. Intelligence analysts warn that this calendar system makes traditional diplomacy ineffective because Khamenei isn't trying to avoid conflict. He's actively working to trigger it as part of religious destiny. When someone believes nuclear war is God's will, rational deterrence becomes impossible. The most terrifying aspect, according to defector reports, Khamenei believes the calendar indicates the Mahdi's return is imminent, meaning Iran's nuclear program isn't just about regional power, it's about preparing for cosmic battle between good and evil. They found him in power for 35 years, the man who turned religious artifacts into weapons of psychological control, who transformed spiritual devotion into political terror. But here's what intelligence agencies really fear. Khamenei's possession methodology reveals a systematic blueprint for theocratic control that's being copied by religious extremists worldwide. Every sacred artifact weaponized, every execution trophy collected, every divine communication claimed. It's all designed to make political power appear as religious destiny. The 7th century Quran wasn't historical preservation. It was calculated spiritual appropriation designed to make opposition to his rule equivalent to opposing divine will. The torture victims' wedding rings weren't random cruelty. They were psychological warfare designed to break the human spirit through intimate violation. The nuclear research shrine, the genetic preservation laboratory, the apocalyptic calendar, each possession was carefully chosen to support his belief that he's not just Iran's political leader, but God's chosen agent for triggering the end times. And here's the terrifying part. This methodology is being studied and adapted. Every religious extremist who claims divine authority, every theocrat who weaponizes sacred texts, every cult leader who collects personal trophies from followers, they're all following Khamenei's playbook. The possessions aren't just symbols of power, they're tools for convincing both followers and enemies that resistance to earthly authority means eternal damnation. When politics becomes religion, compromise becomes impossible. Today, Khamenei's possessions continue shaping global politics from his underground command centers. The nuclear research shrine drives Iran's weapons program. The apocalyptic calendar influences military decisions. The stolen royal jewels finance proxy wars across the Middle East. But the psychological legacy runs deeper. Iran's young people, forced to live under a system where questioning political authority means challenging divine will, struggle with the trauma of weaponized spirituality. Families destroyed by his regime know their loved ones' personal belongings became trophies in his collection. The international community faces an unprecedented challenge. How do you negotiate with someone who believes nuclear war is religious destiny? How do you deter someone who treats weapons of mass destruction as sacred artifacts? He didn't just collect bizarre objects. He perfected the art of weaponizing the sacred for political control. Every ancient manuscript, every execution trophy, every divine communication claim was designed to make earthly power appear as heavenly mandate. But here's the question that should terrify anyone who values religious freedom. Which current leaders are building their own collections of weaponized sacred objects? Whose divine communications are driving nuclear programs? Whose apocalyptic calendars are planning global conflicts? If history teaches us anything, it's that the most dangerous extremists aren't those who reject religion. They're the ones who transform it into an arsenal of psychological warfare against human freedom.